Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So, coming to you from the Western Global headquarters of Prime Inc. here at the Salt Lake City Terminal. So, this is kind of almost like an emergency video. So, two things. One is that tomorrow, so today's Thursday, tonight starting at 1 a.m., it's going to be really, really super windy in Wyoming. And I looked at Ventusky, and it was, the predictions for around 8 o'clock in the morning are winds, gusts around 50 to 60 miles an hour. Now, the signs in Wyoming said 65 plus. 60 is no go for any truck. Okay, 60 is, I've put that chart up there before, but 60 is no-go for any truck, no matter how much you weigh, okay? And that includes flatbeds, because I think a lot of people think that flatbeds are oh, the wind will just go over them. Guess what? Wind moving over an object creates what is called lift. That's why the wings on a plane, as air rushes over the top, it creates a vacuum and actually picks the plane up. That can happen with sheet metal, anything like that. Even an empty flatbed can be lifted. So just, it's probably, if you got to run I-80 tomorrow, especially between Rawlins and Laramie, it's probably going to be best to park and just wait. Because also, Wyoming, if you go out there when they have those high wind signs that say 65 plus, if you tip over, they're going to fine you, in addition to you paying some, $20,000 tow charge. Okay, so that's the first kind of emergency thing, and I hope everybody knows about it. But look at Ventusky. You got to pay attention to that. There's no. I came across there today. It was not brutal, but the winds were gusting around 25 to 30, and I got 43,000 pounds in my trailer, and it was pushing me around a bit. Okay, so I caught wind of a situation at Prime that really kind of is alarming to me and concerning to me. And I'm going to just lay out the facts as I know them. And this is, I caught wind of it, and then somebody called me and kind of told me what was going on. So here's the scenario. There are at least 134 drivers who have received notice that on this week's settlement, the company is going to be recouping overcharges that for loads that these guys hauled. So what happened was this: there's a produce shipper in Washington State who shipped a ton of product on Prime trucks, both I suspect both. Well, I know for a fact reefers, because that's the guy that I talked to. He drives reefer, but also flatbeds, because I see the products on flatbeds. And so this is produce that could go on flatbeds or in refrigerated trailers. So what happened was, the guy that I talked to, he hauled a load. I know it came from Washington State. I don't know where he took it. And I don't know the price that he was quoted, the estimated settlement, right, that you see on the messages and stuff. But what then happened is he got a message from his fleet manager, I think today or maybe yesterday, I think it was yesterday actually, saying, hey, it turns out that the shipper came back to Prime and said that the wrong scale was used to estimate the line haul on these shipments, and that basically the shipper is not going to pay all these elevated rates. Now, this person tells me that the numbers are anywhere from a few hundred, like a couple $100 overage in terms of the line haul to a couple thousand and so what's going on is, and just to back up, what happens is Prime, like if I run a load, like I'm delivering a load tomorrow here in Salt Lake, next Friday they're going to pay me for that, but they might have invoiced the shipper by then, but they won't have collected by then. Okay, and so if the shipper, and this is what's happening here, if the shipper's like, oh, wait a minute, that's too much money, we used the wrong chart, then Prime has a choice. They could say, well, sorry, that's what you agreed to. Or they could say, oh, okay, well, you don't have to pay us the whole thing. And what's happening in this case with these at least 134 drivers is that Prime is basically saying the latter. Oh, okay, you don't have to pay us. But here's the problem. Because of how the settlements go, they've already paid all these drivers at this higher rate and now want to go back to the drivers and say, hey, the company, the shipper screwed up, or we screwed up, but we want the money back from you. And here's my issue with that, right? This is kind of like, it's like fuck the trucker week. Like last week was trucker appreciation, and now we start the next 51 weeks of fuck the trucker. And when you make a mistake at Prime as an independent contractor, and this is probably true at every company, right? You pay for that mistake. You let some cargo, spoil in your trailer because you ran out of fuel, you're paying for it. I paid a claim because stuff tipped over. Okay. If you bump into another trailer and there's damage, you pay, right? Happened to me. So what I'm saying is, when I make a mistake, I don't have any problem owning it and paying for it. But in this case, and by the way, I'm not one of the drivers involved. I didn't haul product for this shipper. But what's going on here is that Prime is saying to the shipper, yeah, well, even though you screwed up, we're going to basically screw over the drivers. And here's why I say this is screwing over the drivers. Because supposing for a moment you said, hey, the fair market value of that load was $3,000. Okay? Supposing for a moment that was the fair market value. But for whatever reason, whether it was the company, the shipper screwing up, or Prime sales department screwing up, they said, we'll pay you, the independent contractor, $4,000, right? Okay, well, when I look at that load, I have the choice to accept or reject it. And by the way, I'm going to get into the agreement here in a second. I had to dig it out again, right? But this is not going to be the lease. This is actually going to be the independent contractor agreement with Prime that governs how we haul stuff. So it says in here, I can refuse a load. But when you present a load to me and you say that's the estimated settlement is $4,000, that is a good faith estimate. And what I mean by that is that it cannot, it can vary slightly, maybe 10%, but the line haul should be pretty damn accurate, okay? Because I'm choosing to do that work for Prime based on the information they're giving me. Every single load is an offer from Prime, and if I say yes, I push on the little green button, then I'm agreeing to accept the terms as they've laid it out. It doesn't matter later on if the shipper or sales screwed it up, right? I don't have contractual privity with the shipper, right? The shipper never said what they would pay to me. Only thing that I was told is what Prime would pay to me. And by the way, that 28%, that's Prime's profit margin. But here's the problem. And think about it like this. Supposing for a moment, right, that you hired a general contractor to build a house. And the general contractor says, hey, I'm going to hire an electrical contractor, a subcontractor. But the general goes out to an electrical supply company and buys all the breaker boxes, the 2x4 boxes, the receptacles, switch it, the cover plates, buys all that stuff. It says here, you use this stuff. And supposing for a moment that the contractor is told, yeah, that's going to be $3,000. Okay? Then the contractor, pays you as the sub for that. And later on, right? Later on, that supplier says, oh, well, we undercharged you. It's not right for the contractor to then say to the subcontractor, oh, well, you got to give me some money back. What really ought to happen is the contractor should say to the vendor, hey, tough. That was your fault, not mine, not my subcontractors. But see, what Prime's doing is saying, hey, we got this big account. We're going to screw the drivers. Because what they're thinking is, we're going to screw individual drivers, 134 of them. But it's like the law of large numbers, right? Like Prime goes, hey, you just owe us, you're just going to have to give us $200. And they're counting on a lot of drivers just being like, all right, whatever. I got overpaid. But what that ignores is that there was a contract in place, right? Because here's the thing. What if I said, hey, I'll take your product for $3,000, and then I got like 200 miles away and I was like, look, if you don't pay me more, I'm not going to bring that stuff. Well, what would Prime do? Prime would freak out and they'd be like, you're breaching the contract. Well, and I would be. So, in the interest of equity, right, let's just call it what it is. It's a breach of the contract by Prime. Because here's the thing. I don't really care if Prime has to take it in the shorts. Because if they have to take it in the shorts, that's their business with that customer. If they want to keep the customer, maybe they eat it. Okay? But I will tell you the amount in question is probably in excess of $100,000. Which sounds like a lot of money, and it is to you and me. But it shouldn't be a lot of money to a company that had gross revenue over $2.2 billion last year. And candidly, even though the market is tightened up, there's a limited universe of people that want to haul produce out of Washington State. So I said to this person I talked to, I was like, let me look at the contract. Now, obviously, this is just my contract, but there are a couple of things that jump out at me. One of them, and this is in section 3. Yeah, this is in section 3, and I apologize, I've just got here and started looking at it. Yeah, so this is section 3 of the Independent Contractor Operating Agreement, payment section. The last sentence in section 3 says, payment to you, meaning the independent contractor, shall be made contingent upon submission of a bill of lading to which no exceptions shall be taken. Now, what that does is it covers them so that if I submit a bill, but then the shipper's like, well, yeah, but it was a bunch of ice cream and he kept it at 45 degrees, so we got a problem paying this. Then Prime can say to me, hey, dude, we're not going to pay you because there's an exception to the bill of lading. Now, in this case, there is an exception to the bill of lading. The problem is, though, that this is putting the burden on the driver who didn't really have a dog in this fight. But here's the other section that's of interest, and I can't find anything that explicitly says, oh, if we don't collect, you don't collect, right? Because Prime is advancing the money. We all know that. But but here's the thing, and I want to point this out to all the people that are impacted by this. Prime has in this contract all of these provisions that allow for deductions from your settlement, right? And all these different paragraphs talk about different deductions. But here's the thing. It doesn't say, first of all, it doesn't say ratification of deductions from paragraph 3. But suppose if for a moment we ignore that for a second. It says they get to deduct stuff, right? For all sorts of things. But it says, if you have not objected to any such deduction in writing within 90 days of the date of the settlement, the deduction shall be deemed ratified by you. And what ratification means is that you're saying, hey, I'm okay with what you said, essentially. So if you find yourself in this scenario where they're trying to claw back money because either sales screwed up or the shipper screwed up, object in writing. And you say, well, where do I send that objection? So in your agreement, it says in section 23, and I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if the light's going to capture it. But basically in section 23, it's got a couple of address blocks, right? It's got your address on the bottom and a manager of contract relations. So what you do is you send that and meet the terms of the notice requirement, which is section 23. It says, all notices, blah, 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 shall be given, shall be in writing and shall be deemed received on the same day if delivered in person, by same day courier, or by telegraph, telex, or FedEx transportation, on the next day if delivered by overnight mail or courier, or on the date indicated on the return receipt. So here's what that's talking about. You can give it to them in person, right? You can FedEx it to them, or you can send it via certified mail overnight. Here's what I would do. I would send it both FedEx and certified mail. Now, here's the problem. The certified mail will work because you get a PO box. But if you send it FedEx to manager of contract relations at Prime's business address on Mayfair in Springfield, and somebody signed for it, you could be like, hey, the company got it. And obviously you want to keep proof of delivery, okay? You want to keep proof of delivery. And I would first object to their recouping when you met the terms of the contract. Now, if it were me, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but if it were me, I would object per the terms of my contract. And then, I would just wait and see. But if after a while I got no results, I would probably retain counsel. Now, if you're only out $200, do you want to retain counsel? No. But somebody's going to have to, and then try to create a class of people. And this is how you create a class action lawsuit, right? People that are similarly situated, same fact pattern, and that would all be the case with 134 people. Okay? Some people are going to just take it and walk away. They're just going to be like, yeah, it's not worth my time. But the point is that this is an example of the drivers taking it in the shorts when they did nothing wrong and they are just doing their jobs. They agreed to it. They agreed to take a load, and somebody else screwed up, right? Somebody that somebody that sits in an office and goes home every weekend and is watching Thursday night football right now in the comfort of their own, living room. Okay? That's not most of us. Okay? We're out here making a living, and it's how we choose, but we're still out here making a living. So, the other option, or an additional option here, is I haven't said who this shipper is, but I don't think it would be very hard for people to figure it out. And honestly, I actually don't know the name. The person did give me a code. I haven't looked it up, and I'm not even sure I can remember it right now because I'm, 60, and my memory's not what it used to be. But I would just be like, okay, lesson learned. And it's not just lesson learned for those 134 people. It should be lesson learned for all of us. And I would be like, I'm not calling your crap. Get somebody else. Call Swift or call England. But I'm not doing it. Because, and here's the thing, right? I would rather haul something for $1.80 a mile than haul something for $2.80 a mile and then find out that the $2.80 job, I got to give back 80 cents of it. Okay? Because when you get money in, you plan. Like, there are probably people that are going to have a huge hit, maybe even be negative tomorrow, who might have just been getting ready to go, take some time off. So, if it's somebody that's like in the $2,000 range, the guy I talked to was like $900 to $1,000, right? I mean, $2,000 is about what you need to gross just to cover your fixed costs on a weekly basis. So there's going to be somebody that grossed $4,000 last week, and they're going to end up with, like goose eggs for their net this week because of this. And it's no fault of their own. So you guys know my email address. I'm not, there are some options here, but I think at a minimum, and this is also for accounting purposes too, at a minimum, you should send an objection. If you fall into this category, you should send an objection, because then your accountants can say, hey, because then it's like a charge off, and you would be entitled to, list that as some kind of charge off on your taxes. I'm not a CPA, but I know that when you want to write off bad debt, you have to have done something to try to collect it usually. So anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. Oh, by the way, bad news, Fat Leonard got busted down in Venezuela. Yeah, I was just kind of hoping he was going to be like D.B. Cooper, and just vanish. I thought it would be cool. Anyway, yeah, that was a bad show for him to get caught, but it happens. All right, so hit me up with any comments. I'll answer stuff generally. I'm not going to give people legal advice because I can't. I'm not your lawyer, but I am your friend, and I'm just telling you what I would do if I were similarly situated. So, anyway, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.